Chapter 1849 Can't Be Killed? You're in trouble. King Arthur paid no heed to Hela's words. He only believed that there was no one who couldn't be slashed by his sword. At most, they were just hard to kill, or used some special ability to create the illusion of being invincible. King Arthur looked around. This was a desolate ancient battlefield, with broken battle flags everywhere and broken corpses on the ground. The bodies were in human form, probably simulated by the administrator through their ideology. The battlefield was perfect for the charge of this Night King. Unfortunately, he did not have a horse under him. But not having a horse was always better than having one. King Arthur smiled, gripped the sword in his hand, and once again charged towards Hela. Hela's mouth curled up into a scarlet smile. It seems you don't believe what I said, but unfortunately, you cannot defeat me here. I did not lie. She extended her delicate, pale index finger, and blood dripped from the tip like a spring. Soon, the thick blood turned into a huge swamp beneath her feet, and then soaked into the ground. The long-decayed, even skeletonized corpses were soaked in blood and slowly rose from the ground. Thousands of zombie puppets stood in front of King Arthur. Their vacant eyes looked at King Arthur and charged at him. Break! King Arthur only needed one sword stroke, his kingly authority was invincible, and he slashed thousands of zombie puppets to pieces. No one could stop him. He leapt about, smashing everything in his way. Hela couldn't help but take 2 steps back when she saw this. King Arthur is truly worthy of the name. If I met you in the outside world, I'm afraid even I would have to run for my life. But in this place, there's nothing you can do to me. That is the existence that can contend with the entire Europa alliance with just the islands of Britannia. They once fought a fierce war after the end of the world. King Arthur led the entire Knights of the Round Table and was able to stand toe-to-toe with the gods of Asgard. Even their main god Zeus had suffered at the hands of King Arthur. Hela knew all of this, but she didn't care. Until King Arthur charged at her like a hurricane and slashed at her body with all his strength. The surging power and the extreme pressure from the king's authority made her feel like she was about to suffocate. She did her best to resist this power, but even though they were at the same level, King Arthur slashed her directly in the chest. Her body exploded, and the surging energy made it impossible for her to maintain her form, turning into a bloody rain that splattered in all directions. King Arthur did not rest after this strike. He took out some special energy bombs designed for use on mutants and threw them at the area where the blood had splattered. These bombs would erupt with a tremendous amount of energy, generating temperatures of over 6,000 degrees Celsius instantly. King Arthur's job was to dry up the blood and kill Hela for good. Boom! The sound of the explosion was deafening and reverberated throughout the ancient battlefield. However, after the explosion, the bloody mass once again appeared on the battlefield, and Hela's body slowly took shape from the blood river. Ha ha ha! I told you, you can't kill me here. No matter how many times you try, the outcome will be the same. Don't waste your energy. Hela's mouth curled up in a crazed smile. I am the god who rules over death. King Arthur's gaze scanned the battlefield, taking in everything that had just happened. He was certain that the explosion had evaporated a large amount of blood, killing the cells in it. In other words, the so-called rebirth from spilled blood was just an illusion. Hela's resurrection did not depend on this blood. Otherwise, even if she could be resurrected, the massive loss of blood would have caused her combat effectiveness to plummet. Europe's famous Bloody Mary is just using blood as a disguise? King Arthur, holding his long sword, muttered, so, what does she really rely on for resurrection? There is simply too little information available at the moment to make a judgment. But so what? He raised his sword, the blade pointing directly at Hela. Hela's face showed no fear, but instead a cocky grin as she laughed at King Arthur. She opened her arms, revealing her bare chest, as if inviting King Arthur to use his invincible broken steel sword to pierce her chest and see if he could take her life. I told you, all your efforts are futile. I can never be killed here. King Arthur obliged her invitation and thrust the sword straight through. Hela came back to life once again. King Arthur continued to use his powers, fighting off the army of corpses while killing Hela. Hela's power was her ability to resurrect, but in the open battlefield, she was no match for the king's authority and the Excalibur sword, so she was killed again and again. However, every time she fell, she would get up again. King Arthur killed her a total of 100 times, but after she recovered, she was as if nothing had happened. Every time King Arthur killed her, he would carefully observe her resurrection. However, no matter how he tried, no matter how he crushed every cell of Hela's body, he could not prevent her from resurrecting. Instead, his own supernatural energy was rapidly being depleted. King Arthur's gaze became deep. He knew that continuing this meaningless killing spree would only exhaust his body first. Hela's body coalesced from the blood, and the look in his eyes became increasingly arrogant as he looked at King Arthur. "What do you say? Don't you believe you can't kill me yet? As a knight, you should choose an honorable way to die." King Arthur's gaze remained calm as he began to think about the successive battle scenes. There is no one in this world who cannot be killed. If she really had such terrifying abilities, she would never have been just a number 3 in Asgard. Therefore, there must be a flaw in her power. Wait, ever since she entered this world, she has been telling me that she absolutely cannot be killed here. She absolutely cannot be killed here. Suddenly, King Arthur seemed to understand something, and he gazed intently at Hela. "Your body here is only a part of your original body?" This was the only reasonable explanation for why Hela was so confident. In that case, no matter what King Arthur did, he could not kill Hela completely. Because through her ability to regenerate with a drop of blood, she could be resurrected by that part of her body outside. And according to the rules of the trial arena, the trial would only end when one side died. Therefore, she was truly invincible. Hela froze for a moment, and then the smile at the corner of her mouth became deeper. "King Arthur, as expected, you have seen through the crux of the problem so quickly." She opened her slender, soft arms. "I have an ability called the Box of the Spirits, which can rip my heart from my body and hide it in an absolutely secret place. As long as my heart is not destroyed, I can never be killed. Even if you cut off my limbs and crush every cell in my body, I will resurrect and quickly recover the lost parts of my body. What do you say, King Arthur? Now do you understand your situation?" King Arthur understood his situation, and his heart sank. An opponent like this, combined with the rules of the trial ground, was simply a bug-like existence. How was he supposed to win? Or was he just going to stop there? Hela raised her hand, and a large number of corpses from the ancient battlefield around her staggered to their feet, brandishing tattered weapons and closing in on King Arthur. She would not give King Arthur time to think, because whatever he did next would just be a waste of time, and there were more interesting things to do. Being able to torment King Arthur, who was famous throughout Europe, was enough to give her pleasure. "Ah, King Arthur, if you're not satisfied, go ahead and use your majestic great sword to pierce my body." Her scarlet tongue flirtatiously licked her lips, her eyes full of confusion and mockery. King Arthur did not fall into despair. He looked at the army of corpses in front of him and kept his head cool. He could not just give up. Wouldn't it be a shame to fall in the third trial alone? There is no such thing as an invulnerable ability in this world. Even if it seems to have no flaws, there must be a way to break it. I need to observe carefully and search slowly. B Changqing never expected that he would be able to advance to the second round of battles. It could be considered as his good luck that the opponent he encountered in the first battle was actually a member of the Heavenly God Squad. After a long and fierce battle, he finally used his powerful physical strength to defeat the opponent. However, in the second battle, when he saw the young man with long black hair that covered half his face, an uneasy feeling welled up in his heart. Because Zhang Yi had said that guy was suspected of coming from beneath the Qinling Mountains. When Chang Wan saw B Changqing, he didn't say anything. He charged directly at B Changqing like a black sword. B Changqing suppressed his inner thoughts. After being able to come this far and feeling the power of the Epsilon level, he had a thought: kings and princes, there is no such thing as a natural talent. Perhaps, by Li Changqing, can also go on. I will take this opportunity to make a career for myself with my fists. He crossed his arms, and his arms quickly bulged up. His arms were obviously 1 or 2 times thicker than normal people's, and when he activated his abilities, he almost looked like a large Konglong giant ape. A terrifying black aura soared up from his body. His greatest source of strength came from the well-trained physique of a special forces soldier and his unparalleled wrist strength. Chang Wan charged forward, and by Li Changqing raised his iron fist and slammed it forward. The punch triggered a sonic boom, compressing the air and sending out a blast that could shatter eardrums. The shockwave instantly cleared a large area in front of him. Chang Wan, who was directly in front of him, suddenly twisted his body like a snake in midair, dissipating the power of Bai Li Changqing's attack. Then he coiled like a snake, suddenly tensing like a spring, and shot forward like a sharp sword. Puff! Bai Li Changqing's murderous punch was easily parried by Chang Wan. He felt a chill in his chest, and when he looked down, he saw that there was a huge hole in his chest. His entire chest cavity had been emptied. Chang Wan's body appeared behind him, and the blurry light and shadow flashed too quickly, as if he had suddenly transformed from a slender black snake into a human. Bai Li Changqing, defeated. Yang Xinxin's second battle was against an old acquaintance, Newton of the Columbia Natural Science Association, whose real name was Isaac Bruto. I really don't know if it's a coincidence that her opponents both times were from Columbia. But it doesn't matter. In such a trial, no matter who your opponent is, you have to kill them. Yang Xinxin had made up her mind from the start that she would fight her way through to the end to see what this so-called trial of a mighty god-level civilization was really about. Unless the person she encountered was Shang Yi, no one else was worth holding back. Even her good friends Lu Karen and Zhou Kir, she would show no mercy when it came time to kill them. However, it was likely that her cousins had already been eliminated in the first round. Yang Xia and Zhou Kir are both auxiliary ability users who are not good at fighting, so it is indeed difficult for them to continue. As for Lu Karen, it is hard to say. Yang Xinxin's opponent is Newton, who, when he saw Yang Xinxin, he looked rather helplessly at his right hand. His wife was gone. Newton, who was used to fighting as a couple, had lost the atheist, hand cannon, and his combat effectiveness would also decline a lot. But what made him most speechless was that the management had decided that the two of them were individuals with independent consciousness, which meant that his wife would have to face an opponent. Who would that person be? Time rewinds 10 minutes. Fatty Sue didn't think he would make it past the third trial, but when he learned that this was a battle against another person, he basically decided to lay down and watch the fun. But when he entered the battlefield, he didn't see any opponents. There was only a huge hand cannon lying on the ground in front of him. Back on the battlefield between Yang Xinxin and Newton, the two people discovered each other. In fact, they had heard a lot about each other. Before the end of the world, Newton was a world-renowned physics professor in the scientific community. Yang Xinxin, on the other hand, was a famous genius and a world-class hacker. Both were members of the Mensa Club. It was an association founded in Britannia in 1946, and only the world's top high IQ talent were invited to join, with extremely strict entry criteria. Both geniuses were members of the association. At this time, the two were watching each other from a very long distance. Newton, he doesn't have his own hand cannon, and has lost his ability to fight at long range. According to the intelligence gained from the battle in Tianhai City, his abilities are Newton's 3 laws, an ability user who leans towards the rules category. His forte is defensive counterattacks, but because he relies too much on his wife the atheist, his combat effectiveness at the moment is not very strong. Yang Xinxin calmly analyzed her opponent. Newton was doing the same thing. Yang Xinxin, the brain behind chaos. She appears in front of the battlefield very rarely, and there is not much intelligence about her. We only know that she can materialize a puppet in the shape of an angel as a means of attack. Targets hit by her arrows can be controlled by her. However, his intelligence system retrieved data on Yang Xinxin's arrows during the siege of Lori Deck from the outside world. Judging from their speed, under normal circumstances, he would not be so easily caught if they were fully concentrated. After analyzing the situation, the two of them came to the same conclusion. The opponent was not a significant threat, but, if they wanted to defeat their opponent, they lacked the means to deal a fatal blow. It was at this time that Yang Xinxin chose to take the initiative into her own hands. She sent a voice message to Newton. "Long time no see, Mr. Borodo. I never thought we would become opponents. We both know that it's not easy to kill each other head-on with our abilities. So, how about we use the Mensa method to decide who of us can advance to the next round?" Yang Xinxin made an invitation. The Mensa Club is a gathering place for geniuses, and everyone here is very proud of themselves and their super high IQs. So when they get together, they play intellectual games to compete with each other. Yang Xinxin's invitation was hard for Newton to refuse, because to do so would be to admit that his own intelligence was inferior to Yang Xinxin's. Besides, at the moment, Newton was not sure that he could defeat Yang Xinxin, whose abilities were unknown, by force. "So, in what way shall we decide the winner?" Newton asked. He was unsure of Yang Xinxin's abilities, so he had to ensure that the intellectual game played would be to his advantage, or at least not give him a disadvantageous start. Yang Xinxin looked at Newton and said, "If I propose the game, there is inevitably the possibility of unfairness in it. The same goes for the other way around. Therefore, the game played must be fair and there must be absolutely no cheating through ability. So, how about chess?" Yang Xinxin paused. "Let's play chess." Newton frowned slightly. It was true that chess games were often played during their gatherings. Chess truly tests calculation power. The faster you calculate, the more moves you can calculate, and the stronger your chess power. Newton's chess power was definitely among the best in the club, but he had never seen Yang Xinxin play chess. Due to her legs, Yang Xinxin had only participated in one doors gathering in the past. However, he agreed with Yang Xinxin. Because chess puts everything on the table, you cannot cheat through ability. The two agreed on how to win or lose the chess game. The two took turns going first. To ensure fairness, only when one side leads by 2 games is it considered a win. If both sides are always only 1 game ahead, then the game will continue forever. Because being able to maintain a higher calculation power at all times is also a means of testing intelligence. The two of them found a clean table on the battlefield, and then used 3D projection to create a chessboard. The chess pieces were also created using 3D projection, and looked no different from real chess pieces. The two of them sat down facing each other and began to fight on the chessboard. Liang Yu's battlefield was a huge volcanic crater. Her opponent, on the other hand, was a petite girl carrying a huge battle axe on her back. The second position of Asgard, Loki, Barrett Thomas. Facing her enemy, Liang Yu dared not take the slightest of shortcuts. Her body assumed the stance of drawing a sword and slashing, her right hand pressing on the hilt as she began to accumulate her own chi. Barrett only glanced at Liang Yu indifferently, not impressed by the woman before her. After all, among the teams of the Huashu Kingdom, Liang Yu's strength was not obvious, and she was only a being with a strength close to that of the Black Chariot. Barrett's supernatural ability index, on the other hand, is a whopping 28,000 points. If she were in the outside world, Barrett could even use a battle axe to instantly kill Liang Yu. A girl with a sword? That's a strange weapon. It looks a lot like Neon's katana. Barrett looked at Liang Yu and began to gauge her combat capabilities. The artificial intelligence of her combat system reminded her the weapon she is using is the original form of the samurai sword, from the Tang dynasty of the Huashu Kingdom. It is a heavier weapon, with a more complex crafting process than the samurai sword, and it also packs a more powerful impact. However, it has slowly been phased out due to issues with the craftsmanship and materials. Judging from the state of her weapon and her body structure, she should be more of a close combat type. Barrett's mouth curled up into a crazed smile. A master of close combat? That's wonderful. Because she, Barrett, was also a madwoman who loved to slash her enemies with a huge battle axe. Come and fight. As soon as she finished speaking, she leapt into the air like a bullet, passed through the huge crater, and fell towards Liang Yu in midair. She raised her arms high, holding aloft her huge battle axe, and slammed it down hard on Liang Yu. Liang Yu gripped Dragon's Roar in her right hand. From the opponent's huge and heavy battle axe, she knew that Barrett was a powerful mutant warrior. Clang! Dragon's Roar was suddenly pulled out of its sheath, and the black energy that had been building up for a long time exploded. A black blade of light soared up like a dragon released from its sheath, rising up towards the sky. The battle axe was slammed down hard, and the bloody alien energy surged forward like a tide, with a terrifying murderous intent, colliding with the black dragon. Boom! The violent collision of energy caused the volcano beneath them to erupt even more violently, sending a large amount of lava and volcanic ash skyward like a magnificent fireworks display. After just one strike, it was hard to tell who was stronger between the two. After all, under the suppression of the managers, the supernatural abilities of all the trial participants here have been suppressed to the same level. A simple collision of supernatural abilities cannot determine the outcome. Therefore, for these two mutants who both mainly rely on melee combat, the key to determining the outcome of their battle is the difference in actual combat experience and skill.